Hello, everybody, and welcome to day 2 of our World Water Monitoring Day events. Thank you for joining us here at EarthEcho's Solving Water Together, Careers That Make a Splash expert panelist discussion. My name is Caroline Crowley. I'm a Senior Water Challenge Ambassador here at EarthEcho International, and I'm going to be your host for this afternoon. A little bit about me. I'm a Water Challenge Ambassador from Medford, Massachusetts, just outside that greater Boston area on the northeast coast of the States. And I've been interested in water science for a while now and been tossing on resource economics. So really looking into that career in water, which is why I'm very excited to be talking to our panelists today, who have also established themselves in the fields of water. Before we dive into their backgrounds, I'd like to give a little bit of a background of EarthEcho, if you have not been able to interact with them before. EarthEcho International is a nonprofit organization founded on the belief that youth have the power to change our planet. Our programs and resources have impacted and reached more than 2 million people in 146 different countries. We were founded in 2005 by siblings Alexandra and Philippe Cousteau in honor of their father, Philippe Cousteau Sr., son of the legendary explorer Jacques Cousteau. EarthEcho International envisions a world where every individual, regardless of background or experience, has the tools and opportunities to create a healthy and thriving environment. To that end, our mission is to build a global youth movement to protect and restore our ocean planet. So we have 3 wonderful panelists for you today. Please feel free to come off mute and introduce yourselves. We have Jan, Christine, and Cara. Cara, if you'd like to start us off and give a little bit of a background on you and your work.
Sure. Thanks for having me. I'm Cara Schildtknecht. I am the Waccamaw Riverkeeper with Winyah Rivers Alliance. And if you've never heard of a Riverkeeper before, the easiest way to explain what we do is that we're like a Lorax for the river. Lorax speaks for the trees because they can't speak for themselves. The Riverkeepers speak for the rivers because the rivers can't speak for themselves. And I look over the Waccamaw River watershed, which is in coastal North and South Carolina. And our organization covers the entire lower PD basin, which is a good chunk of the Carolinas. And yeah, I do a lot of our outreach and education, water quality monitoring, events, a little bit of everything. That's the fun part of being a riverkeeper.
Wonderful, thank you. It's wonderful to meet you, Cara. I'd like to toss it over to Jan.
Hey everyone, it's so great to meet you. I wish I had as cool an introduction as being the Lorax of the rivers. Unfortunately, not. But I actually still really like my job anyways. My name is Jan Novak. I work with Xylem. I've been there for about the past year and a half and work in sustainability and social impact operations. So I know that's kind of a broad topic. So just to give you like a little bit of an idea of what that means, it's kind of in the same way for Cara, just about everything. It's a lot of project management and operations, and that goes for things like our sustainability report, our nonprofit management, and our company volunteering. So just for a little bit of background, I also grew up outside of Boston, actually, in Wellesley, Massachusetts. And then I went to George Washington University in Washington, D.C.
Awesome, great to see another Bostonian. So I'd like to pass it on to Christine. Christine, would you like to give an introduction?
Yes, thank you so much for having me today. I am Christine Joyner. I am an environmental specialist with Pinellas County, and I am also the volunteer and internship coordinator at our campus. And so I work within environmental management. I work in the monitoring and assessment group where we look at the coastal and inland waters of the county, and we monitor it for various things, and it all comes down to watershed protection. I also do education and outreach, which kind of falls under the internship and volunteer coordinator role. And I'm born and raised in Florida, so.
All right, thank you so much for being here today. Our wonderful 3 panelists are going to be talking a little bit about their work in the water-related fields. But before we dive into the panel, a little bit of housekeeping. To our attendees, if you have any questions, please drop them in the Q&A. We will be getting to them at the end of the session. But if you have any comments or responses to our panelists, please drop those in the chat, which will be monitored throughout But that sums it up for housekeeping. Thank you all so much for being here today. I'm going to jump into our question session. Our first question is for Christine. Christine, what inspired you to pursue a career in your field?
So like I said, I'm born and raised in Florida. I grew up in Pinellas County, which is where I currently work. The Pinellas County is a peninsula on the Gulf Coast of Florida, and so it's surrounded by water on three sides. And when I was little, I used to spend my evenings and weekends at my grandparents' condo on the beach. It was a local beach here, Madeira Beach, and they used to try to walk the beach at sunset, which is beautiful. And they could only make it about 5 feet. Every evening because they couldn't pull me away from collecting all the little seashells along the way. And I was the same way basically everywhere we went in regards to parks and natural areas. I'd pick up rocks or gems, and I loved the natural processes of the earth. And I wanted to keep all of the little trinkets. But as I got older, I realized I couldn't keep all the shells and the rocks I was collecting. It was a bit too much. So I decided to put them back. And it allowed me to think bigger. And I started thinking about how everything is connected. And the water around me and around my county has always been a constant in my life. You can drive anywhere here and be at the beach in less than 20 minutes. I'm going to be honest, I still like air conditioning. I like hand soap. I'm still growing and developing as an environmentalist, but I've always had an appreciation for Earth and the elements and all the critters that share this beautiful place with us. And that's what's inspired me to go into the environmental realm with environmental science and specializing in water quality. It was really the water. Being near the ocean in the Gulf of Mexico was therapeutic, if you will, through my whole life. And it really propelled me to want to take care of it. And I just hold it very dear.
That's amazing, Christine. Thank you so much for giving us a little bit of a background as to why you pursued your field. I can definitely relate to that, getting stuck on the beach, getting stuck in those tide pools. I know mine was probably a lot more recent than yours, but beaches up here are quite nice too. I love the shells. I will toss it over to Jan for our next question. Christine, you had a very cool background. We're going to be sticking with that same theme. Jan, what is the coolest thing about your job?
Well, awesome. I love this question. I'll zoom out just for a second to tell you a little bit more about what Xylem is and then why this job is so cool, I think. But so in case you don't know, Xylem is a global water technology company. And there's about 17,000 people around the world that work for Xylem. And so I think what's awesome about that is that even though Xylem is a for-profit business, our mission, as you can see here on the screen, is to solve water. Let's solve water. And Xylem Watermark, which is our corporate social responsibility program, which is basically a fancy way of saying the program through which Xylem engages our colleagues in volunteering, engages nonprofit partners. That also has a really awesome mission of educating, of providing education and equitable access to safe water and sanitation in communities around the world. And I think working for an organization that is so mission driven has really been a treat for me, and it really allows me to feel like I'm contributing to a good thing in my work every day. And on that slide, you could also see that we have our nonprofit partners up there. And I think that is one of my personal favorite parts of my job, is getting the chance to work with, I think there are 8 nonprofit partners on there right now that do fantastic work all around the world. And one of my favorites is obviously EarthEcho, but also Engineers Without Borders, because of the work that we do that's really skills based. And so we'll work with some of my colleagues that are engineers and allow them to apply their skill sets around the world to install pumps in communities that are underserved or under-resourced. And the last thing I'll add is that through our community grants program, which donates up to $10,000 to local organizations, we've reached 300 smaller kind of local organizations that our colleagues volunteer with on a regular basis. So having that broad impact is just really awesome. And I love the opportunity to work with other organizations towards such an awesome mission.
That's awesome, Fun. Thank you. It's great to hear that you have sort of that pride in making that impact in interacting with those communities. I've interacted a little bit with Xylem in the past. I know there have been a lot of other Water Challenge ambassadors and Youth Leadership Council members who have actually done programs with Xylem. So it's great to have you here today representing them. I'm going to toss it over to our next question, sort of in that background area. What paths have led you to be where you are today? So how did you get here? How did you get to this call specifically? I'm going to ask Cara first.
Yeah, this is a fun question because our paths are all so different and we all end up in these different places. And mine started on the banks of the Potomac River on the borders of West Virginia and Maryland. As you can see in that one picture, that is me crying in the river because my family told me it was time to leave. So a little bit like, our other speakers, and that I have always loved water. I've been a river rat my entire life. And that really kicked off my love for water. And as I got older and kind of realized I had to find a career path and figure out what I wanted to do, water was always kind of this guiding force. I ended up getting my undergraduate degree in environmental science with a concentration in water at Shepherd University, and then decided I wasn't quite ready to go to grad school. So I took little over 2 years and served in the Peace Corps in Ghana and West Africa. And that's where the second set of pictures are from, where water is not as easy to come by as many of us think. It doesn't necessarily come out of the tap in your kitchen or flush your toilet. Sometimes you have to walk miles and miles and miles to get water. And we were lucky enough to have a big water pump in our town, but we lost power because the entire country of Ghana is actually driven by hydropower. And it was a drought year and there was not enough water to power those pumps. So we ended up collecting rainwater and things like that. So availability of water became something that I became very interested in, but also community outreach and community education, and also just helping communities gain access to the things they need to help protect their environment while also using their environment for their lifestyles. So after I came back from Ghana, I ended up going to grad school at Coastal Carolina University, which is near Myrtle Beach, if you've heard of the area. Not as great as Florida, obviously, but it'll do for now. And magically kind of walked into my job. I ended up finding out that the Waccamaw Riverkeeper before me was leaving, and it just worked out. It was kismet. It was amazing. And I started as the Riverkeeper on a Monday and graduated with my degree that Friday. So it's been a winding, strange path, but it's been a very exciting one. And I couldn't be happier where it has let me end up. So you never know where your path's going to take you. And I think that's something important for the youth to remember, that, you might not think it's going to be what it's going to be, but let life take you where it's gonna.
Thank you, Cara. That's very reassuring for someone who will be starting college next year. So it's good to see that the path isn't set in stone quite yet. I'm going to toss that same question over to Jan. What paths led you to be where you are today?
Awesome. Thanks, Caroline. And yeah, to echo Cara's answer there, I think it's so easy, especially when you're just about to go to college or pretty still a young person. And even for me now, it's easy to think that everything is just kind of decided and you're going to make these decisions that are going to lock you in. And that's not the case. And so my slide is basically kind of 3 moments for me that I feel really helped. Were kind of pivotal moments for me, I guess, or kind of key moments where I found something I was really passionate about and then pursued that. And I think that'd be my advice to people listening along here, is that as long as you're kind of following the things that really make you happy or that you're passionate about, you'll find ways to use those skills and passions in a productive way. And so the three that I've outlined here are starting in the top left, that's me with my German host family. In high school, between my sophomore and junior year, I studied abroad in Germany, and it was really an incredible time for me to kind of broaden my horizons and better understand the world around me from outside of my little Boston suburb. And so that's my host mom, host dad, and host sister all sitting at a table a few years later. And AFS was the organization that I studied abroad with. I was fortunate enough to get a scholarship to be able to go and study abroad in high school. And that kind of sparked a real interest for me in international affairs and broader kind of intercultural learning. And that's really what sent me to GW, the George Washington Universities in Washington, D.C., which is obviously a hub of political activism and politics beyond that. And I feel so lucky to have had the opportunity to go to GW, to not only meet so many people with similar passions, but also to be able to better understand kind of the levers of change and how DC and the rest of the world kind of works. And I think it was that kind of exposure to a lot of the inequities in our world that then sent me on during my junior year, my study abroad trip with the School for International Training, SIT. And so you can see my whole group standing there in front of the Taj Mahal. And that experience was really pivotal for me. One, because we not only traveled to 3 different countries, we were in India, South Africa, and Brazil throughout that time. And in each one looking at healthcare systems and how healthcare was available or not available, and also the role of water and the environment in someone's health. And so that, I think, really motivated me to want to pursue a career and find a path forward using my skills in water and trying to address climate change and sustainability more broadly. So those were kind of the big 3 things. I know those are all kind of crazy, and it sounds maybe a little insane to zoom out and pick those 3 big things. Or like, how would you ever like be able to plan those things? And the reality is I was not, right? These things will just kind of happen. And as you kind of take what the opportunities that arise, you'll be able to follow your passions and do hopefully good things.
Well, thank you. Yeah, that was great to hear your side of the story as well. I love hearing about the combination of both water-related fields and sort of those community building policy sides to it. There's so much more than just, discovering the pH of a water sample. There's more out there, and I really love to hear that. I'm going to toss over to our next question to Christine. Christine, how does your work contribute to a sustainable future?
Thank you so much. So again, I work for Pinellas County with environmental management, and here at the county, we work very hard at watershed protection. We monitor all of our water bodies along the coast. So we do marine environments, and then we also do all of our inland surface freshwater systems. And we provide baseline data that inspects the health of our water systems. And this like sciencey exploration of our water bodies provides standards for human and environmental health. And we monitor and assess the ecosystem in various ways. And we look at the vegetation in and around the water. We look at invertebrates that are present in the system to tell us, are these sensitive or tolerant species? We look at erosion and sedimentation. And so we take the system as a whole and we investigate it. And all of this enhances our environment for future generations. And ultimately, in my opinion anyways, that is what sustainability is about. It's about looking ahead to the future and making sure that the generations down the road have just as good, if not better, natural resources than we do now. I think it's really important as environmentalists, but also as humans, to think forward. And in order to do that, we kind of have to protect what we have here. And so as a member of the monitoring and assessment group, we do that. We look at what we have here, and we look at our the quality of our water. We measure all different types of parameters, and we look at that and we assess it and we say, is this good? Is this bad? If it's bad? How can we improve it for the future? What is it that we need to do? And then we try to move forward in that regard.
Thank you, Christine. It's definitely reassuring to hear someone talking about, looking out for those future generations, speaking as a member of the future generations. But it's really amazing to hear some of your hands-on work with that, with those communities, with that sort of sustainability initiative. I know there's a lot of people my age at EarthEcho doing those sort of hands-on testing, habitat restoration. So it's great to see that in people's futures as well. I'm going to toss it over to Cara. In your job as a riverkeeper, is there any specific technology that you can use on the job?
We use a lot of different technology in our job as riverkeepers. We do a lot of water quality monitoring, but also monitoring our watersheds. Shout out to Xylem for their awesome Pro DSS YSI meters that we get from them. That's probably my favorite meter that we use. We also use a different meter, multi-parameter meter, meaning that it tests multiple things at a time. Both of those are going to test pH, dissolved oxygen, conductivity, temperature, basically everything you need to know to kind of identify issues in the river. Because our job is to basically identify pollution and then kind of take a step back and determine where that pollution is coming from. And that's where drones come in to help us out. So I've gotten my FAA license to fly a drone. So I'm basically a pilot, just kidding. And I can now fly drones over our watersheds to check out what's going on. So if we get reports of potential pollution and we're trying to find the source, we might take the drone out there and kind of fly around and see what we can see. Never trespassing, never breaking the laws, of course, but doing the best that we can do to kind of identify that pollution. And then one of the biggest pieces of technology we use is something that we all have in our pockets all the time, your cell phone. Basically everybody has a cell phone, no matter how old you are anymore. And there are so many ways that you can use your cell phone to send information to us, but also view information. We use the apps Water Reporter and Swim Guide to get reports back from people in our watershed if they identify pollution, and then we're able to follow up on it. But those two apps also share information. Swim Guide is a great app to use to see if, hey, I want to go swimming in my river or at my beach. I wonder how the water quality is. And you can jump on there and see very easily whether the most recent water quality data is up to snuff, basically if it's safe to go swimming. So we use all kinds of technology, but those are probably our big ones. But I spend a lot of time pushing buttons, definitely.
That's fascinating to hear. EarthEcho really has these, we have our little tiny test kits that we are famous for using, but hearing about those sort of multifaceted meters that you can use, that sounds amazing and very useful and very specific. That would be great to hear about. But even just having your cell phone, having that more accessible data. I know our website, monitorwater.org, also does that sort of live data sharing for water quality. So it's great to hear that there are other websites out there. I will definitely be checking those out. But I'm going to head over to our next question. This one is very interesting. What are common misconceptions people have about the water industry? And I'm going to be looking towards Jan for this one.
Awesome. Thanks so much. So I put at the very end of this question an opportunity for you guys to share what your misconceptions might be or what you think might be misconceptions about the water industry. So if you have any, please feel free to put it in the chat or in the Q&A. But the first one that I could think of is that you actually don't need to be a scientist or engineer to work in water. While it is awesome to hear about how many different opportunities there are for engineers and scientists to work in water, to work on utilities, or do different testing and stuff like that. There's a whole suite of other skills that are needed to help make those operations run smoothly. So I am not an engineer or scientist, and am still more on the operations side and project management. And those skills are needed to help make sure that things run smoothly, keep people on track, and make sure that projects get done. The next one that I was thinking of is actually kind of related to what Cara mentioned early on about the kind of realities of water access. And that's that clean water takes work. It's very easy, I think, especially in the US or Europe, to just always turn on the tap and think, yeah, like obviously clean water is going to come out. And basically for as long as you need it to, you can leave that tap on and have access to water. If it's a long shower or filling up the bathtub or a sink, whatever, right? And the reality is that there's a lot of behind the scenes to getting clean water to your tap every day. And as we can see in, or as we recently saw in Jackson, Mississippi. And so I think that's where kind of the environmental justice lens can come in too, right? It'll be those communities that are underserved and under-resourced that first feel the effects of water systems or of the broader water crisis. So that's something that I've kind of been thinking about. And I think even with electricity or other utilities, right, it's so easy for us to just kind of take those for granted until they're gone. I'm also looking in the chat here. It looks like Mary said a misconception is that you need to live near the water in order to have an impact. That is awesome. I totally agree. And I think some of my other panelists can probably speak to that in even greater detail, but I am an avid picker up we call it plogging at Xylem, which is a mix of jogging and picking up trash. It's a Swedish trend, but picking up trash basically and taking care of your own watershed is so important. So Mary, so glad you're a plogging fan. That's awesome to hear. But Christine, Cara, maybe you guys want to jump in and talk a little bit more about your watersheds and why that's so important.
We're going to start talking at the same time. I knew it. Yeah, the plogging, we host cleanups all the time, and people are always like, oh, can I clean up in my neighborhood? I can't go out on the river. Like, I don't want to go out on the river in a boat. And I'm like, no, please clean up on land, because eventually, where's it going to go? You know, we have a lot of issues with stormwater runoff in our area, and I'm sure Christine does too. And trash is a huge thing that anybody can take part in. And then I completely lost my train of thought, but yeah, that's a huge one. And then my organization also does a lot of land conservation efforts. So again, that what happens on land will help protect clean water. If we can help protect our environments on land from becoming impervious surfaces or just staying natural so that they can do their originally intended functions, then we can help protect water as well by protecting stuff on land. So that is a great misconception that people have. For me personally in the Waccamaw, the greatest misconception is that the Waccamaw is dirty. I have the hardest time convincing people that my river is actually clean, even though I have all the data and all the proof to say, hey, this river is in really good condition. People are still like, no, it looks weird. I don't think it's clean. It's a Blackwater river, so it looks like a giant cup of tea, and people just don't trust that it's clean. So yeah, and I'll let Christine talk now since I interrupted her.
No, you're good, Cara. Thank you. And Jan, both of your comments have been wonderful, but the only one that I could think of that hasn't been discussed so far is a misconception is that your lone actions won't make an impact. And I think I've been guilty of it. I think, oh, I'm one person. What can I do? What if my behavior? How is my behavior going to impact when everything else is going wrong? How can my lone acts make a difference? But when we all think that, it's like, I think the term would be tragedy of the commons, where if we all don't change our behavior, then it can escalate. So if I change my behavior and you change your behavior and he changes his behavior and she changes her behavior, even though we're independently changing our behavior, all of us are changing our behaviors, and the more we change our behaviors for the positive, the greater impact we can have. And so I think it's a misconception that if we change something that we're doing, like if we here in Pinellas County, like I said, we're surrounded by water on 3 sides, and so we have a lot of residential properties that butt up to the water, and everybody loves a green yard, right? Everybody loves to have this beautiful lush grass, and it's beautiful, but we have like a buffer zone where you can't fertilize 10 feet from the water. And if people think, oh, well, I don't want my grass to die, so I'm just going to go ahead and fertilize the whole yard. Well, if everybody does that, then there's no buffer zone, and all of those nutrients are going straight into the water system. So if I protect my 10 feet buffer zone and you protect your 10 feet buffer zone, we're going to have that vegetative area that will absorb, hopefully, those nutrients before they actually hit the water. So it's just an example. But if we all try, I think we can make a really big difference for the better. So.
Well, thank you everybody for those, just adding on to Jan's points. I want to highlight definitely that even little actions can help. We were talking about plogging. Those little things, they do help making that buffer zone. My senior thesis currently is on fertilizer runoff, so that's really fun to hear somebody else talking about that. But thank you all for talking about those misconceptions. It's really great to take a step back and see, what are we thinking about? What are we thinking wrong? What are we thinking right? But for the sake of time, I'm going to move on to the next question. This one is for Christine and Cara. What is one of the biggest challenges in your field at the moment? So Christine, take it away.
Oh, sorry, it's this mute button I always forget, sorry. So one of the challenges that we have is that educating the public can be difficult. So we have a lot of pollution in urban areas, and our county is very densely populated. And so we want to make sure that people realize that what they do on land affects what happens in our waters. And sometimes you can meet resistance with that, but mostly people are just unaware that it can make such an impact. But everywhere that water touches, water can be really sticky, and it collects things along its journey. And so it moves things, and ultimately here where it ends up is our water systems. And so we try to educate the public to let them know that what they do can have a huge impact on our water. And so we try really hard to educate them. Only rain down the drain is one of our mottos here. And also here in Florida, we have 2 separate systems. We have a stormwater system and then a sanitary sewer system. And we try to let people know that that they are 2 separate systems, and that the stormwater system ultimately leads out to the bay or the Gulf and the ocean. So it's very important for them to understand that if they throw a piece of trash down on the ground, it could ultimately end up in the ocean. And so we want to really try really hard to help prevent the pollution from getting to our waterways, and by doing that through education.
All right, Cara, can you add on to that at all?
Yeah, definitely. Education is a huge part. The more you can get out to people, the better. And we do a lot of that as well, with a lot of the same issues. So Christine, I'm going to have to chat with you more offline. But in my watershed, and particularly in Horry County in South Carolina, which is where Myrtle Beach is, we are getting thousands and thousands and thousands of people moving to this area every year. And so, and with our total population growing, there are just more needs on our lands and waters than ever before. And so this growing population leads to increased development. So In that first picture on the bottom, you can just see how the development is getting closer and closer and closer to our river. And with more people, there's a need for more homes, but there are ways to do it smart and to do it in places where it's not going to impact the environment in negative ways. And we're really working with our local legislators and our local planners to get that information out there. With a growing population also comes a need for more food. And that's where the second photo comes in, which is a factory farm, or what we call concentrated animal feeding operations, or CAFOs. And we have a lot of those in the North Carolina portion of my watershed. And you can see in that picture that there's a big pink pond. They call those lagoons. When I think of lagoons, I think of something beautiful in like the islands in the Pacific where you can go swimming and fishing and it's great. You would never want to go swimming or fishing in that pink lagoon. That lagoon is made up of hog waste, which is exactly what you think it is. And then that waste is sprayed onto the fields. You can kind of see the circular blotches of grass kind of back from the farm. And that's where they're spraying the waste. And when it rains, guess where that waste goes? It all ends up in our rivers. And I can tell you that the smell is awful. The nutrients and the E. coli that end up in the waters because of that are really, really bad. So they're major polluters, and it's all to provide affordable food for people, because we just need more food. And then something we've already touched on as a group is that with more people comes more trash. And this is a photo from one of our most recent cleanups that we do along the river in Conway, South Carolina. I had volunteers out for only a couple hours, and that's the amount of trash that they collected. There's like 15 bags of trash there. And, you know, like Christine was saying, how people think that one person can't make a difference. Even with trash, it's the same way, but it's kind of the opposite. You think, oh, I'm just one person. If I, throw this piece of trash out, it's not the end of the world. And then when everybody has that idea, you end up with the same problem, that there's just trash everywhere. So our problem is really just with more and more people, there's more and more issues. And people are great. We love people, but we need to think about how we can kind of combat this increasing population with ways that we can help protect the environment. So that's one of our biggest issues, just with a growing population density in this area.
All right, thank you so much. So those are our challenges. Of course, next question is obviously our solutions. So this goes to everybody, but since we are coming up on that end of call time, I'm going to ask that you do keep it a little bit quick. But our last question for everybody, what is the number one way that we as students can make a difference? So whoever would like to start with that? I know Jan hasn't spoken in a bit, so I'll toss it over to you.
Oh boy, pressure's on right away. All right, well, I think we kind of touched on this already a little bit, but I think the number one way that I would encourage students to make a difference is, actually, I'm going to take two, sorry. The first is going to be to follow your passions, right? And if water is something that you're really passionate about, as we've all kind of shared in our upbringings, or if you are really passionate about computer science or communications or whatever it is, there's a way that you can contribute your skills and your passions to the broader challenges that we face today and in the climate crisis and sustainability. So find a way that you can get involved. And actually, Xylem has some opportunities that you can get involved, such as Ignite as youth, or even beyond that with our volunteering programs. There's lots of great opportunities out there with EarthEcho as well that you can find to get engaged and to contribute your skills to be part of the solution. The other thing I wanted to talk about is kind of more around this idea of culture that Christine was talking about or mentioned. I think it's so easy to think that those individual choices don't really matter, right? And that if it's voting, or if it's putting your trash away, or if it's your fertilizer on your lawn, those small actions can feel so insignificant, but it's why I really try to compost my food scraps, That to me is something that one makes me feel better, but I think also makes a difference. And when I tell people I compost, or I make all my housemates compost, or I make my parents reluctantly compost, those kind of cultural things. My mom talks about it to her friends, my housemates talk about it with theirs, and those just kind of the cultural awareness grows there. So even just those small things, even if your individual difference is small, the cascading impacts around it are really big too. So don't be afraid to be a champion of those individual actions. We obviously need systemic change too, and we need politicians to take climate change seriously, and local governments to take it seriously too. But your actions really do matter, and the cultural shift that we need to undergo is a big one, and that one that we can use your help with.
All right, thank you, Jan. I'm going to toss it over to Christine. Same question. What is the #1 way that we as students can make a difference?
Thank you so much, Jan. You spoke eloquently. So I'm just going to say it might be a piggyback off of Jan's, but I would say the way you could probably make a huge impact is just small steps. You don't have to make grand gestures. I mean, if you want to, by all means, we would love it, but that can be a bit overwhelming. So I would recommend just do what you can within your own realm. So you can take baby steps to accomplish a greater good. So even if it's bringing your own bags to the grocery store and putting your groceries in those reusable bags, that's less waste, that's less plastic that's going into landfills, but then also being produced, so it's just small little steps that you can take will make a huge impact. Because if we all do that, again, it goes back to that whole, we can make a difference with our own behaviors. So I would just recommend just baby steps.
Those are all such great things. You guys, yes, I agree with both all. And just to kind of piggyback off of both of you, our organization is currently doing a action challenge to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Clean Water Act, where we put together a list of 50 actions that literally anyone can do. And they range in from really easy to like kind of hard. But I'd be happy to share those with EarthEcho and with my fellow panelists. They're really great ways that people can just take those baby steps to helping protect the environment. And another great thing, if as a river keeper, I have to promote my other water keepers as well. You might not realize it, but there's probably a water keeper near you on your favorite waterway. There's hundreds of us throughout the world, and we have opportunities for you to get involved. We have resources for, what you can do to help protect water, as I'm sure many of the counties in our areas have as well. Do your research, find out what's local to you, find out what else is going on in the environmental world and how you can get involved. If you're interested, if you're not, do your own thing. But there are so many resources out there now for anyone to get involved and to participate in clean water protection in your own backyard. So I really encourage anybody just to find those resources and do your own thing.
Amazing. And we are coming up onto our final time, but I wanted to say a massive thank you to all of our panelists for joining us here today, as well as our event sponsor of Xylem Watermark. Thank you, Jan. But thank you so much for everybody here today. Of course, be sure to follow us online at EarthEcho. We have a couple of social medias and contacts, which will be popping up on the screen. There we are. So feel free to check us out online. I don't know if we have time for Q&A. Let's see. If anybody wants to very, very quickly answer, what do you think is the biggest challenge we need to overcome to make sure people have access to safe water? I am very sorry to put you on the spot, but we are going to be wrapping up. So if anyone would like to take that very quickly.
I mean, I can take a stab at it quickly. I didn't know if we were at time right here or not, so sorry if I'm pushing us over here. But I think as we've kind of seen from the other panelists as well, there are so many challenges that we face in water, and I think not only in terms of like having too much water in one place, right? Like flooding, or having too little water like drought, but also just getting people access to clean water is a challenge in and of itself. And I think you can look at, you don't have to look far outside of the United States to find those challenges where people don't have access to clean water. And I think if you look at Flint or Jackson or other places that are lacking access, a lot of indigenous communities, it's often just underfunding and under resources. And I think, or those communities being under resourced and not having the political power or the funding to address those challenges adequately. So I think my answer is probably just like political will, which kind of stinks, but it's a great reason to go vote and a great reason to go make a difference with organizations that are trying to take on those challenges. So there's lots of technical challenges, but we kind of have those solutions. I think we just need to make it happen.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's a very big question for a very small period of time, but we do have one very quick question as well from the Q&A for Cara. Cara, what is a Blackwater River?
Great question. So the easiest way to explain a Blackwater River is basically it's like a cup of tea. So we have a lot of cypress swamps, and the rivers are typically slow moving. They're not what you think of as a river coming from a mountain to the coast. They're going to be coastal, they're going to be low, they're going to be slow moving. And as they wind through those cypress swamps, they get stained by tannins, which are released when there's decomposition of those, natural detritus and vegetative material that breaks down. So just has the time to hang out and brew, as we say.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. Thank you to all of our panelists today. To wrap us all up, I want to say again, happy World Water Monitoring Day. On behalf of EarthEcho International, thank you so much for tuning in. I would like to encourage everybody to come back for us on our final session tomorrow, taking action with the EarthEcho Water Challenge at 1 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow. Thank you again for all of your support and all of your answers today. Panelists, stay safe, stay healthy, keep exploring, everybody, and have a good day.